Hey, podcast listening people, welcome to another guest interview episode of B2B Mentors. And on the B2B Mentors podcast network, we do everything from expert interviews with expert B2B marketers, business celebrities, entrepreneurs, authors, you name it, everything from that to solo shows, expert topics. But at the end of the day, all of this is free for you. So please do me a tiny favor in exchange for bringing you this great information that you can take and implement into your own marketing, into your own business. Make sure you share this, drop a comment, and if not even for you, for someone else. I guarantee there's someone else in your network who's going to get great value out of this information. And of course, I am bringing these top experts to share as I do today with my friend Scott Faraci. Did I pronounce it right again that time? Did I do?
Was I two got for it two? Dead on, Connor.
Was I good? I'm sorry my intro wasn't country music, by the way. I know it was a little on the opposite end of that. But Scott Faraci, my friend here, is the current Chief Marketing Officer at Solero Commerce and former sports and entertainment executive working with well-known brands like Bank of America, UPS, Sears, and MasterCard, plus many more, of course. Couldn't list them all, I'm sure. And amazing talents such as Garth Brooks, Christina Aguilera, Shania Twain, Phil Collins, and the Backstreet Boys. He's also driven sponsorship for clients with NFL, Olympics, FIFA World Cup, NBA, and many more, and is a great resource for information, not only on B2B, but B2C, which at the end of the day is human to human. And so there's a lot to share there. Scott, welcome to the show, my friend. I'm grateful to have you here. Obviously, I'd say where are you tuning in from, but it's pretty pretty plastered back there.
We made it very obvious, but thank you for having me on this wonderful fall day, Connor.
Absolutely, man. So give us a little bit of context and, what in your past led you into the world of marketing, branding, sponsorships, and eventually, marketing leadership in the position you're in now.
Sure. I'll give you the quick version. So when I started my career, I started off in working for an agency in the sports and entertainment marketing world. And our company focused mostly on corporate consulting. So working with various companies on the investments they made in major sporting and properties. I'll explain properties, meaning entities that sell rights to their mark. So that could be a music tour, like you mentioned, some of those big music names. It could be the NFL, it could be the Super Bowl, it could be FIFA, a World Cup, it could be the Olympics. So how do you get back a $60 million investment in the Olympics, and how does that impact your bottom line? Obviously, a public company, publicly traded companies want to do well. So do privately held companies. So working with those companies to integrate those property assets into their business plans. And a lot of times that involved a lot of the different marketing tactics. So everything from public relations to promotions to advertising, right? And so how do you take all of that and utilize it to make a profit for yourself? At the end of the day, that's what a business is trying to do.
Yeah.
So, that's how I started my career. And I will say one of the greatest things about that was it gave you a breadth of experience at different business models. So how you worked with a financial services company versus how do you work with a retailer versus a consumer packaged goods company. And so although the tactics and strategies may vary tremendously from one to the other, there's a lot of familiarity and similar types of aspects to that, whether it be B2C or B2B, as you mentioned. So I say that because as my career progressed, I ended up focusing a lot on the financial services industry, and that led me to becoming head of marketing at a company at the time called Payment Tech, which was in the payment processing world, and worked specifically, obviously, that was purely B2B side of it, and really kind of was my first foray into kind of leading a marketing organization and acting as a CMO. And CMOs have very broad meaning, and in different companies it means different things. And for me, it was just how do we access all of our marketing capabilities to help our business achieve its objectives. And so, working within the teams and working within the different sales channels to leverage our different tactics to help them achieve their goals. So that kind of led me into that space, and I've pretty much spent a big chunk of my career now in the financial services industry, particularly the payment services space now, which is evolved into a lot of the software side of the world, so the SaaS side of the world. And obviously it's become much more digital as life has progressed here, but some of the things I learned in the old traditional world of marketing still apply today too. So
We'll talk about that. Like what's still like traditional? Actually, let's rephrase that. What do you feel in your experience on the other side of the business now, being in the world you are now? Like what do you have as an advantage that you've learned maybe from others who have just strictly been focused on, B2B marketing their whole careers?
That's an interesting comment, Connor. I will give you an answer as it applies to me. One of the things that I have found is that, as somebody that really kind of drove marketing as a whole, and if you look at it holistically, that to me has always been the most sound foundational approach when you're looking at, be it a campaign for a brand, a campaign for a company, a campaign for a sales channel, is an integrated approach to marketing. And so whether that meant your charitable side of what you do, to what do you do from an advertising on, pick a platform. Is it broadcast? Is it digital in today's world? Because that's something that evolved. But those same strategies and tactics apply today into the digital space, although maybe morphed a little differently. But what you're still trying to achieve is the same. And so I think making sure you've taken a very integrated approach to how you're spending your quote unquote marketing dollars for your company, for your brand, for your business, and making sure you utilize all those different platforms to your best ability. And so, I've never been one to say, hey, let's put everything into social media, or it's all into pay-per-click today in the SaaS world, or it's all in mass broadcast television, or it's all in, and I think the background in that sports entertainment world, although it's a very niche space, I think when you start working with some of those Fortune 500 brands, one of the things you learn, obviously, work with a MasterCard. I mean, you as a consumer see every day the amount of money they spend on advertising on television, right? You see their commercials every day. You see those celebrities that they've paid to endorse their products every day. And they're spending a lot of money on that, but they're also spending money on other areas that you may not see every day. And it might be in charitable contributions to impact the communities they serve. They serve both a B2B market and a B2C market. So most people may not even realize that. When I started my career and we started working with them, it used to be a world where banks either issued a Visa or a MasterCard. They didn't issue both, they issued one. And so, that in and of itself was a whole different marketing campaign. And so it helps you learn. For me, it helped me learn that perspective, a very holistic approach. Now, that may not mean that, hey, I'm a packaged good brand, I'm going to spend a lot more money on mass broadcasting, right? Because that overkill of the spend is fine because I'm trying to reach such a broad audience. But, in a B2B space like we operate, we may not have the same budget. So proportionately, we may not be spending as much, if any, in certain channels. But that doesn't mean we're not also taking advantage of each one of those marketing tactics.
What are you heavily focused on now? Like what's just working really well for you this year in terms of, obviously, number one, you got to reach enough of the right people. Number two, you got to consistently stay in front of them. What's working for you now?
I think for us, if this is the other, and I think it kind of comes off of that question you just asked me about, what did I take away from my previous life? I think building your brand and really making sure you have a solid brand in that marketplace is really important. Now, doing that, I feel, is partly through that very integrated approach to how you're positioning yourself in the marketplace. But for us in particular, we're a B2B space, and we have We have a channel that operates direct to merchants. We have a channel that operates through partnerships, and we have a channel that operates through integrated software that we sell. And so each one of those channels is a little unique in how you're approaching that market and achieving what you just, asked me.
Well, talk about that a little more specifically. When you say
Sure.
channel, like what is this email campaigns, like new client acquisitions, email, paid ads? Is it like what's been the main driver of pipeline for you?
So I'll take it. Each channel is very different if you want specifics. So like in our direct to merchant channel, we have sales teams both in-house and out in the field that are directly contacting merchants in our space, offering payment processing. It's a very competitive space. It's very broad. There's lots of competition out there. Probably a merchant probably gets 2 to 3 calls a day from somebody offering to help them switch out their payment processing. So to me, I've always said in that channel alone, our salespeople are our brand, and they're the ones out there driving it every day. So my job is to prop them up and make sure they have the right tools to be successful. And how do you target the right merchant? How do you approach them? What is our offering set? Packaging that offering set. So providing them the right, briefcase of material so that they can go out and sell it, be it over the phone or face to face, and helping them to be achieve success. In our partner channel, a lot of times that may be a lot of bank partners that we work with, and the variation of that relationship can be tremendous. But at the end of the day, same thing. So now it might be a little different in that we're providing a partner the tools to go be successful, right, in talking to their merchant or their clients. And again, a lot of times that is providing them the resources. So our team a lot of times operates behind the scenes, out of the focus. We're not the centerpiece of attention, but we're there. We're that strong right-hand arm, making sure they're successful. So do they have the right tools? Do we provide them the right sales slicks? Do we provide them the right, in branch material they need to sell? We provide them the right, email templates for campaigns? And are we the experts in our space? So a banker may be out talking to lots of merchants about a lot of different product sets, right, from a bank. And our job is to make sure they're armed with the right tool set for.
Are they literally boots on the ground, like going into brick and mortar and building relationships that way?
We have teams that do that, and we also have teams that do it,
virtual social selling.
It depends. It depends because we have probably over 200 bank relationships, so it varies quite a bit.
Wow, that's impressive. So talk about, you mentioned like having inconsistent brand messaging. It truly impacts your bottom line. A lot of because I agree, like, especially now in the modern era, your salespeople are now marketing people, and your marketing people are salespeople, and vice versa. They need to be very much blended versus, back in the day, very much kind of in a vacuum. So how do you as CMO ensure the branding consistency? You mentioned resources, but I want you to get a little more specific in supporting salespeople all the way up to the point of purchase. Like, what does that string of processes look like to ensure there's consistency there?
The great thing about today's world is the digital space has allowed us to do that at a much better success rate than previously. So, I started back in this industry, 20 some years ago. And before the digital space, a lot of stuff. So you would arm your sales teams with, it was printed copies of sales slicks, presentations. Just think about that. Think about that alone. Like I would have to provide a presentation to one of our sales reps. And anytime you made a change or you edited it or anything, it had to be reprinted out, rehanded to them. And there wasn't a way to manage that as efficiently and effectively as you can today, right? So to your point of what you just said, is we have a resource center for them. So that's a digital resource center where it is always the most up to date, whether it be pricing information, be it, brand information about who we are, or our size, or our capabilities, or we have new products that we rolled out, and what are the features and functionality of those products? How can we update them instantly so that they know, oh yeah, that was a feature we were losing on to clients, and now we have that feature available to us, making sure they understand that. And so your point, that branding, if you look at branding very holistically like that, that includes some very specific things about who you are as a company and what you can offer. If you're not clicking in all cylinders there, you're losing business, or you are missing business because you just don't even know you can go get it anymore. And once you start to get to a certain size, I think as a company, you can't just manage that by saying, hey, I've got my sales team in every Monday and we talk about all the, and I can send them out. Well, you start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm sure you have a lot of people in your audience, or a lot of companies that, probably experience the same things we do. We grew through acquisition too. So we've acquired 9 companies in 3 years. That layers a whole nother thing on branding.
100%.
And so that's where, branding then becomes your contracts that you send out. Do you have the right, do you have control over their social media account? Any place a customer can touch that brand and they see an inconsistency, it's like, I don't know. If you're married, I always look at it this way. My wife, if I don't make the bed the right way, my wife will tell me if there's a rough lot of place. She'll know it. I might think it looks great. She's going to point it out. Same thing with a customer. If a customer sees, maybe a customer, especially for us in the financial industry space, they need to trust that we can handle their money appropriately, because that's what we do. So if there's inconsistencies, it may,
if you can't even notice the details in your own marketing and branding, how can you manage the details in there? So it's like even more crucial in, like in your scenario, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I sometimes, that's why it's like, you can't treat all your customers like the lowest common denominator and just, you have to actually, I always approach it as they're going to see every flaw. So either it's a flaw that we accept and we have a reason to explain that, or it's a flaw that we have to fix and make sure that it's not apparent to a customer. So that goes back to that branding thing. So, branding as a whole is, how do I have a consistent message across all of our marketing platforms? And that's social media, that is your digital media, that's your email templates. Do we make sure that your signature, it comes down to that brand signature of that sales rep. It should look very consistent with any other rep or our customer service team. And that builds that trust in your brand, that you've taken the time to be concerned about every little aspect of you as a company, which gives assurance to a client or a customer. So, and we look at that at multiple levels. So we have the end customer, which is the merchant doing business, but we also have the bank partners, or we have software partners, and they are going to approach it the same way, especially if it's, even more so if I've got a bank partner who, maybe they use our services and our services are white labeled to them, right? And so they're marketing themselves to their merchants. They really have to trust us, because now they have a third party handling part of their customers' business.
I've hosted a lot of webinars and trainings and live events and virtuals and Q&A sessions, and have brought in, other CMOs to kind of partner up on that. And a question I've gotten a lot that I've found many marketing leaders in your position, where leadership, they're going out and acquiring business like drunk sailors and then throwing them in and like, all right, marketing, like do your thing with it. And there's just like a mess. What are some of your pieces of advice, strategy, maybe some wisdom or even mistakes you might have made in getting that consistency through other brands that you've, had to work through with acquisition as well?
I would say it starts with that communication process within your executive or leadership team. So how aligned are you with your CEO and your CFO and your CTO and your COO or your CAO, that you have the right processes in place, which I feel like as a company, we do a great job of communication among our leadership team. So we're all aligned with the who, what, why, when, and where. And if I've got all that ready, I can, I know what I need to do. And a lot of times I think where those errors happen, it's the communication of timing or, okay, I mean, simple example, does the CTO or does the technology team have them all on Microsoft 365? So everybody we're going to roll them out as a new brand and we're integrating them to us. And that company is no longer going to operate as ABC company. They're going to operate as solerocommerce.com. Well, when their emails go out and they go out as ABC companies still, because I've rebranded them, I've pushed it out in the marketplace, that's the disconnect we talked about. So sometimes it's simple, and it really is. I'll tell you, my learning is it's always the details. That's what always kills you. It's not the big stuff. Nobody misses the big stuff, but do you miss the details? And it's the little things that always come back to bite you in the butt.
I love that you shared that point. I think that's really important. The small be obsessed over the details. Don't now when it comes to putting yourself out there, perfection paralysis is ultimately going to kill you. But when it comes to something as crucial, especially in a roll up of other companies, brands, acquisitions, and getting your brand consistent, those small I mean, we went through a rebrand, just us, our small business compared to yours, and there's so much more, like, oh shoot, I forgot that, and what about that? There's so much more in there, than people really realize. So,
and every acquisition is different, and so there are a lot of the similar things, but then the little things are always the different things. And it might be, I can tell you a story. I mean, acquiring a company and they no longer have access to their social media accounts because they don't remember who set them up. They don't have the login information. They don't know. They can't find that person anymore. I mean, we've been through that. And it's like, okay, well, let's figure out what. So it's always, it's good to go through that. And I think experience is the best teacher on a lot of that. And, you to your point, you don't want to, put yourself into this paralysis that you can't make calls or decisions. So, a lot of times it's, do we have the right processes in place to go through this? And if we know what we need to do, then I've got the right people assigned to the right tasks always know, as a CMO, I know where I'm strong. I also know my weaknesses. And so if I've got to bolster myself in a certain area, I got to make sure I've got a strong team there to handle that aspect of it. And again, I think it's, it sounds silly, but communication is key.
But you forgot communication. You didn't throw communication on there.
Not enough. You know what? There's never enough communication, to be honest with you.
So, Scott, before we wrap up here, I want to know, in the world of marketing, marketing leadership, even if it kind of speaks to your career, or even just implementing marketing, what's a strongly held belief you've had for quite a while that you've maybe changed your mind on in the last 6 months?
I don't know. Are we allowed to get edgy with discussions here, Colin?
Yeah, bring it on. This is open forum.
You know what? I'll say this on the B2B side of things. I feel social media, if you want to throw it out there, has been kind of pushed into the B2B space as, and maybe this goes back farther than 6 months, obviously, but I still have yet to see it be that essential piece. Like, it has a role, but I'm not sure, me personally in my space here, that I would say, is it worth sometimes the time and effort invested in it when there are much more productive streams? And it's almost sometimes as if there's like this force fit to try to make it work because it must work because everybody's doing it and everybody uses it. And I don't know. So if you're asking me, I will say that's probably not controversial, but I do feel like,
you've got some angry marketers listening to you right now. Like, what? Which I love. I love, by the way. That's so counter to the majority, which I love. I think that's really interesting. And so what is the alternative then? Like social media, a lot of companies rely on that for XYZ in terms of reaching existing customers, attracting talent, brand building, consistency. And by the way, I agree with you that we forget about the basic principles that cold calling still works, knocking on doors. Like I did door-to-door sales for 2.5 years when I was in college to pay my way through college. So like banging, all that stuff still works. And the way I see it, content and social media is a big support dynamic of that. But what are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with you, Connor. I think I'll clarify. I do think social media can be valuable for the bottom line, if that's what you're asking about, in certain industries, certain, product sets or services might adapt better to it. From my perspective, I think, does it have a place and you touched on a couple of those. Maybe it is, we're using social media for recruiting. So how do we use it for recruiting? So the thing is like, then be very specific about that and use it that way. If social media does what it says it does, which is you can get very targeted with your messaging, there isn't that overkill of, national television broadcasting, right? I can reach exactly who I want to reach. Okay, then what message is going to have an impact on my business? If I have, X dollars to spend on a SaaS software that I'm trying to sell in a certain vertical market, should I really spend so much time and resources on the content, the creative, the messaging, the offer, to push it out through Facebook? Let's use that as one example. To go get, great percentage. I got 2 leads out of it and one of them closed. But that same amount of effort and time, I probably could have had 1,000 leads on even Google pay-per-click or, Bing or, Capterra, some other channels we use. And, it's how you evaluate it. And it's like, I had discussions with our agency about that, is it really worth it? Because can you even scale it? Can I scale it beyond that? Did we reach the 2 people we were ever going to reach? Maybe. So, I'm not trying to dump on social media. I think it has its purpose. And for us, a lot of times it's more about celebrating our people, celebrating things happening in the community, supporting causes. It's just that it's difficult because it's also a platform for people to, be very negative in too. And so you can't control that. And so you got to be very careful about what you put out there, because it may come back to bite you in the butt, because that's not the perceived image of your brand in the general marketplace.
So true. So true. Great points. And with that, Scott, man, I can't thank you enough. This has been really enlightening. It's been very interesting conversation, and you're always welcome back on the show anytime. I appreciate you and your background and sharing. And then what would be the best way people to find you, follow you, get into contact with you?
Considering probably nobody wants to follow me, but I would love you to follow our company and go to solerocommerce.com. And, even though I just said this, you're more than welcome to follow us on any of our social media accounts.
Just don't follow them on social media. Just whatever you do, just in spite of what Scott said. Which, by the way, if you're really listening, he's not totally saying social media is bad, blah, blah, blah. Like, you guys got to take, I know there's going to be some people sending me some messages or whatever. And I love it.
I actually kind of like that too. I appreciate it, but I'm not bagging on it. You can, if you want to reach me, find me on LinkedIn, but I really appreciated the time, Connor. I enjoyed our conversation too.
Yeah. Me too, brother. So stick around for one quick second here. And for the rest of you, thank you for tuning in. As always, again, you can find us on all your favorite podcast apps. If you want free B2B content marketing courses, go to provencontent.com/free, and you can access those. You don't even need to opt in or give your email address. These are tens of thousands of dollars worth of B2B content strategy. provencontent.com/free. Much love to you, my friends. Make it great. And I'll see you on the other side.